In 1982, Chen Yexian, the only son of martyr Zhao Yiman, hanged himself at home alone at the age of 53. Hearing this sad news, his colleagues were puzzled that the only descendant of this well-known female martyr would choose to embark on this road. In 1929, Chen Yexian was born in Yexian, Hubei. At that time, Zhao Yiman was only 24 years old, but he had graduated from the Whampoa Military Academy and was one of the leaders of the May 30th movement. When Ms. Zhao Yiman died, Chen Yexian, who was living in the uncle's house in Wuhan, was under 7 years old. In August 1936, because Zhao Yiman was still unable to obtain information from her mouth, the helpless Japanese pressed her to the execution ground. On the eve of his execution, Zhao Yiman cheered up and wrote a suicide note to his son with his hands that had been tortured beyond recognition. My dearest child, Mother does not educate you with thousands of words, but with practice. When you grow up, I hope you don't forget that your mother died for the country. Due to the urgency of the situation, this suicide note is not long, but it shows a mother's reluctance and prayers for her son who is about to say goodbye, making it hard for readers not to be moved. However, from the perspective of God, if we connect Chen Yexian's half-life experience thereafter, we will only have infinite sighs and regrets. After liberation, Chen Yexian couldn't help crying bitterly when he learned that his mother Zhao Yiman had already died. When he was young, he looked forward to reuniting with his biological parents day and night, but his mother never saw him again. With tears in his eyes, he stuck the tip of a pen with ink into his arm, and stabbed heavily the 3 characters Zhao Yiman to express his respect and longing for his mother. As a descendant of a martyr, under the care of the state, Chen Yexian was recommended to study in the Department of Foreign Affairs of Renmin University of China. While studying at Renmin University of China, his father, Chen Dabang, who had been working in France for a long time, returned to China, and finally met Chen Yexian and his son, with a lot of emotion. It's just that at this time, Chen Dabang has re-established a family and has a child. In the following years, Chen Yexian also visited his father several times. But looking at his father's happy family, as the eldest son, he looked like an outsider. Chen Yexian couldn't help feeling desolate, and seldom went there again. After graduating in 1955, Chen Yexian was assigned to Beijing Institute of Technology and became a political teacher. However, his work and life were not satisfactory. Due to being dependent on others and lacking the companionship and love of his parents when he was young, Chen Yexian has always been introverted and dull, not good at socializing, and has almost no friends. He also often goes to class unkempt, which makes the students talk a lot. In his dormitory, there are always cigarette butts on the floor, no quilts, no garbage cleaning, and the sanitary condition is worrying. The most important thing is that Chen Yexian's financial awareness is also very weak, and he spends money lavishly. The salary of 69 yuan per month is not low, but he is always extravagant in the first half of the month. He often buys Class A vegetables and buys alcohol. Return. Considering Chen Yexian's status as a descendant of the martyr Chen Yexian, the state specially approved that he could be given a supplementary pension. However, in the face of this windfall, Chen Yexian, who was often empty-pocketed, flatly refused. He believes that the mother sacrificed her life for the country, and the receipt of money desecrated her bravery. This insight made many people look at Chen Yexian with admiration, and also brought him the nourishment of love. During the teaching period, Chen Yexian and student Chen Yolian met and knew each other, and the 2 young hearts were attracted to each other. In 1957, the 2 became husband and wife, and 2 daughters were born soon after. However, Chen Yexian, who has been promoted to husband and father, seems to be not quite used to this change of role. His personality is still withdrawn, and he is used to being stuffy about big and small things in his heart. He does not discuss with his wife and makes his own decisions. All these immature behaviors annoyed his wife, Chen Yolian. She tried to communicate with Chen Yexian, but her husband was like a boring gourd, unwilling to have a deep talk with her, and unwilling to hand over the salary to his wife. For this reason, the 2 often bickered and quarreled, and even had a cold war. The time after time of verbal battles eventually exhausted the warmth of the 2, and finally ended in divorce. After the divorce, Chen Yexian gave his children more than 20 yuan of living expenses every month, and there were not many other changes. He was still sloppy and dull, and financially stretched. In order to take care of Chen Yexian, the school raised his salary to 77 yuan, which is already generous enough. Considering that he was not good at planning, he found Yuan Beishan, a good friend of Chen Yexian, and entrusted him to help Chen Yexian manage his salary. At the beginning, Chen Yexian could still obey his friend's arrangement, but after a long time, he returned to his previous state, and Yuan Beishan and the school leaders were really helpless. In this way, Chen Yexian began to be full and hungry again. He often drank in a daze, and his mental state was not very good. The school leaders were worried that he could not think about it, so they specially arranged for Chen Yexian to go to the hospital for examination and treatment. In the autumn of 1960, his father Chen Dabang came to visit Chen Yexian. Seeing that he was very thin, he took him to the restaurant of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference Auditorium and ate the signature dish braised lion head. Feeling the long-lost father's love, Chen Yexian had a very happy meal. But unexpectedly, this meal made him feel guilty. Chen Yexian feels that his long-term wanton enjoyment is not good for the mother who sacrificed for the country and the people, and even more sorry for the common people who are short of supplies. He often washed his face with tears and murmured to himself, despite his father and leading colleagues' repeated reassurances, but he was so stubborn that he couldn't listen at all. Since then, Chen Yexian's mental state has become more and more depressed. He has a dull expression, is not used to communicating with others, and even ignores his children, completely isolating himself from the outside world. One day in August 1982, a colleague found that Chen Yexian hadn't asked for leave, but hadn't come to work for several days, so he went to visit Chen Yexian's home. Unexpectedly, as soon as the door was opened, the colleague discovered that Chen Yexian had hanged himself to death. The misery and lack of parental care in childhood may be the source of Chen Yexian's misfortune in his life. And this kind of growth environment also caused Chen Yexian to not love himself, let alone others when he was an adult. He suffered from the torment of demons, but he was still unable to break free. The martyr Zhao Yiman died calmly for the common people in the world, but her only reluctant son did not live the happy life his mother had hoped for after all. This has to be said to be a great regret.